Hey everyone, professional photographer Ian Plant here, and in this episode of Photo Talk, I am speaking with the very talented Jennifer King. She is a nature and landscape photographer, and if you want to learn more about how she creates artistic photographs and about her encounter with two wolves during a very private moment in the Grand Tetons, then stay tuned. Jennifer King, welcome to Photo Talk.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here today.
Well, I'm very happy to have you on the program. I think this is going to be a great talk. We have actually been bumping into each other quite a bit this year. So in March, we bumped into each other in Death Valley. And then during the summer, we bumped into each other in Badlands National Park in South Dakota.
We did. That was fun.
Yeah, I remember thinking, it would be great to go out after sunset and get drinks with Jennifer and catch up. But during the summer in the Badlands, I think night actually lasts for about 5 hours. And so I call it the sleep deprivation tour. So I was like, you know what? It would be great to catch up with you, but I think that's probably a bad idea.
Sleep is very important. So I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. You know, I love the Badlands in the summer. Like, it's my favorite time to be out there because you get all the summer thunderstorms building up and the light and the weather and the compositions are incredible. But I never get any sleep on those tours. All my clients, every time they show up on those summer tours, they're like, can we do some night photography? And usually after the first night where they only get 3 hours of sleep, they're completely disabused of the notion that night photography is a good idea and they don't bother me about it again.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah, people will do it one night and they say, okay, I've done it. We're good.
So, not a lot of photographers are going to the Badlands. So it's always great to talk with someone else who's doing workshops or tours there because I love the Badlands. It's one of my favorite places in the world to photograph. And so what is it about the Badlands that you like?
I absolutely love it too. And hardly anybody goes there. I don't think they understand the beauty of it. It's just not a highly visited park, I guess. To me, just taking the desert, the rock, and mixing it with this beautiful grass, whether, depending on the season, it could be golden, it could be green. Sometimes wildflowers. It's just incredible. And if you can actually get into the Badlands, walk around the rock formations, it gets even better than that. I've always loved it. And I guess, it reminds me of the movie that was filmed out there, which I always enjoyed watching. And that was, what movie was that? Dances with Wolves, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And that was just so incredibly beautiful. And I loved the landscape in the movie. So The first time that I went out there, I thought, oh my gosh, this is just amazing for photo opportunities.
Yeah, there was a few movies that have been filmed out in that area. I think the other big blockbuster that was filmed out somewhere around there was Starship Troopers, or at least one scene from the movie was filmed out there, which is, probably one of the worst movies ever filmed. It's a terrible movie until you realize that the movie is a joke on the actors who are all trying very, very hard to act normally in it. But yeah, it's a beautiful place and I absolutely love it. I think a lot of people don't know about it because it's in the middle of the Great Plains and you're out in the Great Plains and you're driving for hundreds and hundreds of miles and it's just nothing but maybe some rolling hills, but just grasslands, empty grasslands, ranch after ranch. And then all of a sudden it's like someone came and took a big axe to the landscape and just carved this like pit in the landscape, and that's where the Badlands are. They just literally, the prairie ends and it drops off and there are these rock formations. And I love photographing in the Badlands, and people scratch their heads and wonder why until I take them in there and show them what the area has to offer. And they're like, oh, I get it now. So it's always good to know that there are fellow Badlands aficionados out there. So let's backtrack a little bit and tell me about Jennifer King's origin story. How did you get into photography? How long have you been a pro? What is it about photography that just grabbed a hold of you and never let go?
Well, I guess it started for me. I was actually not a photographer, but I was directing photography. So I was a creative director and a director of photography in the corporate world. So a lot of the productions that I did were based in LA, London, and a few other places that were really interesting. And I absolutely loved what I did. The clients were amazing. The photographers were the best product and people photographers in the industry at the time. So these were my teachers. I learned so much from them, and I spent 13 years doing that. And I really, truly loved what I did. But what I would do during my downtime, if I had any, I would try and get out to the Grand Tetons in Yellowstone just to photograph, just for fun, just for relaxation. And so I would go maybe 3 or 4 times a year, whether it be a couple of days or maybe 5 days. I would just get on a plane, go to Jackson Hole, wander around for a few days with a camera. And it was something that was very peaceful, relaxing, absolutely loved it. I couldn't take a photo worth anything. I mean, these photos were crap, to say the least. They looked like really bad snapshots. But I loved it nonetheless. So I had an interest in photography. Professionally, I had a fantastic eye. I just didn't have the technical skills to operate a camera. So back in 2011, I made a change. I left the corporate world and I said, I'm going to spend about a year photographing and see if I can't get any better at this. And I did. I never intentionally planned on running workshops or being a professional landscape or nature photography. It kind of just happened. But I did spend time just relaxing, getting away from the corporate world, photographing, trying to find a new path or something else to do. And I eventually stayed with it. And I absolutely love what I do. I could not be happier that I made those decisions.
Yeah, I mean, since then you have built up quite a business empire. I mean, you're running workshops and tours all over the place. You are doing presentations. I bump into you every now and then on the presentation circuit. I think we're both going to be doing a
Right.
presentation in the Smokies together next spring. If
Right,
I,
we
yep,
are. Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah. So,
That'll be fun.
so
That's
how
fantastic.
how did you get into all that? Like, what was your path into to basically doing all these workshops and tours and presentations and everything else that you're doing?
Well, when I started to try and learn photography, I was talking about 2011. I did 3 workshops with Art Wolf, just to kind of try and learn what the heck I was doing, and I really got a lot out of it. And then I came back, never intending to do a workshop, but I would talk about things. I was showing photos to friends. So back in 2012, I had some friends that said, I'd like you to do a workshop. Why don't you take me over to the Smoky Mountains? You know it so well. Which I did. I lived over in that area. I had a home in the North Carolina mountains. So I spent a lot of time just exploring. And I thought, well, you know what? I'll go ahead and do a workshop, see what it's like. So I got everything lined up. I got a permit and did one workshop in 2012 with just, I think it was 4 people. And they said they loved it. They were having a great time. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll try another one. So I ended up setting up 3 workshops in 2013. And they sold out. They did really well. People were liking what I did. And I was loving it too. So I just kept moving forward with that. And when I started meeting other professional photographers or talking to other photo groups, I started getting asked to do some speaking engagements. And so I would talk about things like art and composition because that is my background. So I had some knowledge from that perspective. And at this point had some experience with running some photo workshops. And it went really well. I think I was very fortunate and very lucky. But I'm also very driven and determined. So if I'm going to start something, I really want to finish strong. I'm kind of in this for the long haul. I want to be a really good, inspiring photographer and teacher. So I think that's where I am now with photography and workshops.
Well, I'm glad you brought up talking about the artistic side of things, composition, visual design, and things of that nature. And it's something that I obviously focus on a lot in my photography teaching. I tell people all the time that when you go out into nature, the landscape is going to look the way it looks. The weather is going to be what it's going to be. The thing that's really under your control completely is where you stand, how you set up, your focal length, your angle of view, the perspective that you choose. Basically, creating a visual design is the one thing that is completely under your control as a photographer. And therefore, in my view, it is the most important critical element of photography. And so I was curious to know your thoughts on visual design. I mean, obviously, this is a big topic. There's a lot of different things. But when you're making a photograph, what are maybe some key elements that you're looking for? how is it that you are designing your photographs in a way that's going to stand out and be unique and really grab the viewer and create a connection with them?
That's an excellent question. I, with such a strong background in the visual arts and fine arts, I'm able to approach every location with, I guess, a basic understanding of fundamental composition and all the elements that go into that. This has been elements of design that I have used in my previous career. So to me, they're second nature. I don't necessarily have to think anymore. But I also realize with photographing with other people that a lot of people don't really know this. They don't know the artistic side. So what I like to do is try and familiarize everybody with the basics of foundations in design principles and get it so ingrained in their brains that they can stop thinking about it. Because I think a lot of times people have the approach that they, one, need to capture realism, two, that they have rules to follow, which there are absolutely no rules. And then again, third, they feel like they're supposed to just go out and get the grand landscape sometimes. And there's so many details and things that we could use in nature to create really beautiful art. So I like to challenge people creatively by giving them actually creative challenges. So when we get out into the field, yes, we'll do a sunrise shot. Of course, people love that. But then I turn quickly into something I call a creative challenge. And this may be something like, okay, I want you to spend the next hour focusing on curves, or I want you to focus on a specific color. Any kind of design element, whether it's line, foreground, anything, to try and get them thinking about how to use these elements in a very simplified manner. So when they get out to a grand landscape, maybe later that evening for sunset, they have practiced the art of trying to visualize or to see simplicity in the shape or form of line, color, light, anything that I can think of at the moment, because I realize I have an art background, but not everybody does. And in fact, a lot of people that do workshops with me or photograph with me, they don't have a background. There's a lot of stuff they don't understand. So I'm always encouraging them to try and find their inner artist. And I believe that every person has an inner artist. In fact, a lot of people believe that we're born with creativity, and as we age, we start to lose that because of responsibilities and everything else. But that's not true. It's there. You just have to be able to tap into it. So my mission is always to help people try and find that inner artist and break away from all the rules that they're thinking of.
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, and a few things that really jumped out at me. So obviously, there's a lot of things that we lose as we get older, unfortunately. But I'm glad that you that you understand that creativity is not one of those things. And I'm also very, very glad that you said that there are no rules. This is like a pet peeve of mine. It drives me nuts. People show up and they want to learn the rules. And I'm like, there are no rules. Rules are for fools. A good photographer has a bunch of creative tools that they could use, but there are no rules. And they're like, no, Ian, you have to learn the rules and then you can learn how to break them. And I'm like, but if the rules can be broken, then they're not rules. I mean, so I know it's a semantic thing, but it drives me nuts. And it's really good to hear someone else say that there are no rules. And I think that's very true. There are things that work. There are things that don't work. But whether they work or not really depends on the situation. They may work sometimes. They may not work other times. And trying to distill it to a bunch of rules, I think is going to limit people more than it's going to help them. I think the one thing that I see more often than not when I am critiquing the work of photographers is people using the rules in the wrong situations. And, so for example, a lot of times I'll be looking at a photo and I'll say, well, did you use the rule of thirds here? And someone will say, yes, I used the rule of thirds. And I say, well, that's your mistake right there. The rule of thirds really isn't the best composition for this particular scene. If you had done it differently, if you had quote unquote, broken the rule of thirds, you would have had a better shot. And so I find I spend most of my time trying to get people to unlearn the rules that they've been taught elsewhere, because I think the rules are setting them back. Now, obviously, you are leading a lot of workshops and tours and doing a lot of presentations. What are the things that you see the most that people are doing wrong? What is it that you see constantly that you're telling people, no, you don't want to do this, you want to do something else? Is there one thing or a few things that stand out to you?
I think think one of the biggest things I encounter and I'm constantly trying to address is this HDR approach to photography where everybody's taking 5 exposures or so and they just want to blend them together. I don't want to say there's anything wrong with HDR. There's not. But not every photo needs to be an HDR photo. In fact, not every photo should. I think when you're looking to the fine art photography, the light and the shadow create a little bit more mystery and design in your image. And I think it comes out as a stronger photo. So I'm always encouraging people to break away from that, look at the light, study the light, and don't try and balance everything out. Is there a place for HDR? Of course. But I do think that fine art photography and learning that it's okay not to have everything absolutely realistic is a hard thing for people to understand if they don't have an art background. But I continue to push that, and I will even take their work and process them and say, okay, let's do it like this. Now I want you to study these over the next couple of months, and then we'll see what you think about it later, because people are going to continue to grow. I can't expect, I'm sure none of us expect someone to come in and learn exactly everything that we know immediately. It takes some time. We've had a lot of time in the industry and with art. But I would say that is probably my biggest criticism, is that they cannot break free from realism whatsoever. And I still like realism, I just don't think everything has to be so balanced out.
Yeah, once again, I think this is
I
the
like
motto of
mood.
our interview. I'm so glad you said that, because that's another huge pet peeve of mine, is that people always want to pull up the value of the shadows to reveal what's in them. And I'm constantly telling people shadows are beautiful things. The shadows can be really useful because sometimes they might hide details that are going to be distracting, that aren't really going to add to your overall composition. And it's the interplay of shadow and light that can reveal shapes and patterns that can make powerful compositions. I tell people all the time, shadows are beautiful, the color black is beautiful, and it's okay to have both of those in your photographs. And of course, this is so vitally important to black and white photography. And you are known in particular for your black and white photography. So I wanted to ask you about that. What is it about black and white that attracts you? Why have you moved in that direction?
That's really interesting that you asked that. Black and white photography is actually, I would say, relatively new to me. Not that I didn't dabble in it before, but I had been working, well, I was in Yosemite doing some black and white photography with some friends back in February 2020, and then traveled around, got home, or at least got to Death Valley in March of 2020 when everything shut down due to COVID. And I found myself out there pretty much having the park to myself in 2020 March. Everything started closing around me. Didn't know whether, people would be coming in. The lodge started shutting down. They were running out of food. I had to find my way home. So what I did is I went out and photographed on my own at the sand dunes for like 3 days, or 3 sessions, I should say, a sunrise, a sunset, and another sunrise. And I went out there and I said, well, I'm just going to work on my black and white. But I was able to put my mood or my feelings into what I was doing, which can be hard for some people to do as well. But I did. And I found that I discovered a side of me that may have been a little dark or hidden. And I was able to bring that out. It was, I guess, exaggerated maybe by fear, concern, everything else. So it was a very moody situation that I was exploring, but I was also able to bring that into the work that I was doing. And then I really started to dive into it through 2020, doing a lot of processing, exploring other artists, trying to push the boundaries. I tend to like my black and white photos moody even still. And when I am photographing in the field, I am photographing intentionally for black and white. I'm looking at light, I'm looking at shadow and patterns. I'm trying to find something that speaks to me. And then when I get to processing, I come back and I say, okay, this is what I felt when I was out there. How can I best communicate this? Do I want it to feel light and bright? Do I want it dark and moody? And that's my approach to black and white. And this is an ongoing thing for me. I see that I'll be doing this for some time. In fact, I'm still working on an entire new gallery with black and white images, but I approach it so much differently than I approach anything else that I photograph. I put more of myself into it.
Well, that's a really interesting way of putting it, and that's a completely unexpected answer. And so I'm curious. It sounds to me, this darker side that's revealed in your black and white photography. It sounds like it comes out a little bit of out of the experience we have in nature. So nature can be an unpredictable place, and sometimes it can be quite terrifying. And I can see how that might influence the mood and it might inject a certain amount of moodiness into the work. So tell me, like, what have been some of the really exhilarating, maybe scary, maybe dangerous, or really exciting experience you have had when you've been out making photographs? When has nature just kind of whacked you across the head and really just dealt you something quite nasty?
Well, I will say that both in March 2020 and March 2021, I was out in Death Valley with major windstorms. And while everybody's hiding in the room and the powers are going out, I mean, I went right out there in the middle of it. I didn't care if I was getting belted with sand. I mean, I had it in my hair, my ears, in my bag, even though my bag was closed. And I ruined a lens. And honestly, I didn't care. I can get a new lens, but being able to be out there and capture drama that nature presents is something that doesn't occur all the time. So if I can find those conditions where nature's presenting some drama, some mystery, or a dark side of nature, I'm going to put myself right in the middle of it, whether it's a storm, a sandstorm, a crazy ocean, a volcano, anything. I'm going to put myself right there because that is nature's way of saying, here I am, and I'm most powerful. And I want to be able to capture that and share that with everybody. But I certainly have some really nutty experiences over the years. And I will say, for anyone that has photographed with me or that knows me, grace is something I was not given when I was born. I am extremely clumsy. And I remember one of the first workshops that I did, I was at Oxbow Bend. Had a small group out there. This was, I think, in 2013. And somebody needed a GND filter for sunrise. And I said, okay, I'm going to run back and get it. So I start running just as fast as I can, because time's important here. Everybody's set up for that shot. And I'm running along that path down by the river. And all of a sudden, the ground is gone. I mean, completely gone. And I am airborne. And I'm trying to figure out in this split second, why am I airborne? What's going on? So my arms just kind of go out. And then I feel like I'm flying like Superman, literally. And I hit the ground so hard, boom, that a lot of people heard it. But I didn't stop there. I hit the ground and I rolled and I rolled and I rolled more into the Snake River. Which was kind of funny because everybody heard it. And all of a sudden I heard, Jennifer? As if they knew it was me. Of course it's me. Who else would it be? But I managed to get myself out, crawled up on the bank, covered in mud, leaves, and everything. But by the time I got to the car, got a GND filter, I got it in time for the person to use for sunrise that morning. And I looked just like I had crawled out of the swamp. But those kind of things happen to me quite often. But they're fun. You laugh about them later. Actually, I laugh about them when they happen too. But it's just all part of being out there in nature. Those things are going to happen. In fact, I have a friend that says to me, I fall, trip, and do stuff like that all the time because I get so excited about photography that my mind thinks faster than my feet. And that might actually be true. But I'll even talk about this one time when I was out in the Tetons. This was some personal time I was out there and I had a 4-wheel drive. A lot of times I'll go down River Road and I'll hang out there to see if bears or wolves are out. I had been out there since morning, so I had some coyotes I was photographing, some elk, and I was just kind of hanging out. I had lunch in the car. I'd probably been out about 4 hours. so far. So it was late morning. And I said, okay, well, nature calls. I got to pee. So I get out. I'm by myself. There's no one around. So I get out on the side of the car, just a few feet away, and I start to pee. And all of a sudden, these two wolves, wild wolves, just came out of nowhere and started trotting by me as I am peeing. And I just kind of held still like, okay, because I'm at their eye level, of course. And they just stopped and they looked at me as they went, what's she doing? Okay. And they just kept going. They were so close, I could have reached out and touched them. But I mean, it really was a great experience. You don't expect that, but
Yeah.
it was so exciting and so thrilling just to see that close. I mean, I would do it again. I always go to River Road just hoping to see him again.
I can just imagine right now these two wolves telling a story to their friends. Like, we were just walking down River Road one morning, minding our own business, and we turn around the corner and there's this human peeing right in front of us. She was so close we could have reached out and touched her.
Exactly. They're thinking, and she just sat there and kept peeing. She didn't even stop. I didn't know what to do. It's like, I'm just going to not move. Yes, they have a story for the den, definitely.
Well, I always believe in ending an interview on a high note, and I think that story is our high note. It sounds to me that whatever grace you were given goes directly into your photographs. Jennifer King, it has been a pleasure talking with you. I hope we can have you again sometime on Photo Talk.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it. Thanks so much, Ian.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.